Receive the highest value and unmatched security for the remittance sent by your loved ones abroad from People's Bank. Get extra 10 rupees for every dollar and receive a refund of transaction fees up to rupees 1,000 when depositing funds to a rupee account. Receive the highest value and unmatched security for the remittance sent by your loved ones abroad from People's Bank. Get extra 10 rupees for every dollar and receive a refund of transaction fees up to rupees 1,000 when depositing funds to a rupee account.
In a few moments, the news.
Receive the highest value and unmatched security for the remittance sent by your loved ones abroad from People's Bank.
This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
The time is precisely 6:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here's the news edited by Dulbin Samarasinghe and read by Ramesh Piris. First, the headlines. A transport service is to be introduced covering tourism zones. The Ministry of Environment plants thousands of trees to mark Valentine's Day. Several institutions summoned to appear before the Committee on Public Enterprises. The opposition leader Sajid Premadasa announced as the common opposition candidate for the next presidential election. Discussions related to the health strike are unsuccessful again. 5 suspects arrested with eyes valued over 20 million rupees. In news overseas, International Atomic Energy Agency starts safety review of Fukushima Daiichi treated water release plan. In sports, Winter Olympics, Kamila Valieva allowed to compete at Beijing after court hearing. Now the local news in detail. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has instructed the officials to pay attention on launching a transport service covering tourism zones. He said that all train compartments that have not been used so far should be added to the service. The President said attention should be paid on using electric buses. President Rajapaksa pointed out it is important to pay attention on the fuel crisis and environmental issues. The President mentioned this during the Progress Review meeting on the transport sector, which took place today at the Presidential Secretariat. The Ministry of Environment launched a tree planting program in 2021 called A Plant for Love. It has planted 50,000 mee saplings island-wide. Minister of Environment Mahinda Amaravira expressed these views while participating in the A Plant for Love tree planting program held at the Sri Lanka University of Technology, Paduka today. He said young people were planting trees today, giving a new meaning to Valentine's Day. Several institutions have been summoned to the Committee on Public Enterprises in the coming days. Accordingly, the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau will be summoned before the COPE Committee on Friday on February the 23rd, and the Sri Lanka Standards Institution will be summoned on February 24th. Development Lotteries Board is scheduled to appear before COPE on March 10th, whilst the Marine Environmental Protection Authority is scheduled for March 11th. State Mortgage and Investment Bank has been summoned before COPE Committee on March 23rd. The Sri Lanka Export Development Board has been summoned on the 24th of March and the People's Bank on the 25th. The national organizer of Samagi Janabala Vegaya, Tissa Attanayaka, said today the leader of the opposition, Sajid Premadasa, will be the common opposition candidate for the next presidential election, as the parties believe people want him to lead the nation. Mr. Attanayaka told a press conference that SJB believes people will endorse Mr. Premadasa's candidacy and all opposition political parties will back him. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
Get extra 10 rupees for every dollar and receive a refund of transaction fees up to rupees 1,000 when depositing funds to a rupee account from People's Bank.
Continuing with more local news, the strike launched by 17 health trade unions continued today as well, causing severe hardships to patients. Issuing of medicines, x-rays, scanning, blood tests and other tests had been disrupted. Discussions related to the strike had been unsuccessful today. People say that the health trade union action cannot be justified. 5 suspects have been arrested by the Special Task Force of Police with over 1 kilogram of crystal methamphetamine, also known as ice, which has a street value of over 20 million rupees. STF said the narcotics had been smuggled into the country and the suspects were arrested during a raid in Pesale, Manor. Drugs and the suspects, aged between 33 and 45, were handed over to the Manor police for further investigation. The Office of UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, will avail the Sri Lankan government's copy of the draft of the report on Sri Lanka's situation today, giving it time till Friday to respond. Foreign Secretary Professor Jayanath Konabage said the ministry would formally receive the draft today. He added that Sri Lanka would brace for defending its position with the backing of like-minded countries. The CID has arrested a civil organisation spokesman, Shehan Madaka, for revealing false information by holding a press conference on the Easter Sunday attack. He had disclosed the false information last year. Police media spokesman SSP Nihal Taldua said he is scheduled to be produced before courts tomorrow. Meanwhile, the police media spokesman said that investigations into the attack on the house of journalist Chamudita Samaravikrama are being conducted at Mount Lavinia Police with the assistance of CCTV footage. The doctor who was arrested for allegedly planting a hand grenade at All Saints Church in Borella was today ordered to be remanded till February 28 after being produced before Colombo Additional Magistrate Rajendra Jayasuriya. He was arrested and detained under the provisions of the Prevention of Terrorism Act. The police media spokesman SSP Nihal Taldua says the CID is conducting investigations into the theft at Kotavehara Rajamahaviharya. He said assistance of the intelligence units will also be obtained for investigations. He requested the public to give any information about the incident to the Rambukana OIC's number 071-859-1419. And that concludes local news.
Get extra 10 rupees for every dollar and receive a refund of transaction fees up to rupees 1,000 when depositing funds to a rupee account from People's Bank.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The Foreign Ministry says that it is constantly monitoring the situation with regard to the Sri Lankans residing in Ukraine. Foreign Ministry stated that there are about 40 Sri Lankans in Ukraine at present and 7 of them are students. The ministry said Sri Lankans are staying in that country without any problems. Although there is no Sri Lankan embassy in Ukraine, these matters are being handled through the Sri Lankan embassy in Ankara, Turkey. The Foreign Ministry said necessary steps are being taken to evacuate the Sri Lankans in the event of an emergency. And that came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watch Night. The police said officers in charge of police stations across the country have been instructed to conduct raids on parties organized at hotels and other places with drugs, especially today. Police spokesman SSP Nihal Taldua said that police intelligence officers in respective areas have been notified to find the places where such illegal parties are being organized and inform the OICs in those areas. And that came to you in Watch Night. A bulletin of world news follows. Moving on to the Bulletin of World News, first the headlines. International Atomic Energy Agency starts safety review of Fukushima Daiichi treated water release plan. German Chancellor arrives in Ukraine ahead of Russia visit. And campaigners say big banks fund new oil and gas despite net zero pledges. Now the world news in detail. A team from the International Atomic Energy Agency has started a safety review of Japan's program to release treated water from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant into the ocean after dilution. The 15-member team consists of IAEA officials and international experts. They exchange views with officials of the plant's operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company, and relevant government officials in Tokyo today. The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has arrived in Ukraine in the latest diplomatic push aimed at preventing a feared Russian invasion. Today's visit comes as Western countries withdraw staff from their embassies in Kiev, with many of them also urging their citizens to leave immediately. Campaigners have said big banks are pumping billions into new oil and gas production despite net zero pledges. Share Action said banks including SLBC, Barclays and Deutsche Bank are still backing new oil and gas despite being part of a green banking group. It said investors should force banks to demand green plans from fossil fuels firms before funding them. Back to the headlines of the world news. International Atomic Energy Agency starts safety review of Fukushima Daiichi-treated water release plan. German Chancellor arrives in Ukraine ahead of Russia visit. Campaigners say big banks fund new oil and gas despite net zero pledges. And that concludes world news.
Development News is brought to you by Let's take all out of the coconut tree and make the island thriving and prosperous. Call our hotline 1928. WhatsApp 070 400 1928.
Minister Johnston Fernandez said construction work of the first phase of the double flyover planned at the Justice Akbar Road and the Uttarananda Mawata to solve traffic congestion in Colombo City will be completed on time. The minister said the flyovers will be constructed at a cost of 5,270 million rupees. And that was Development News.
Development News was brought to you by the coconut tree is well grown in almost all the parts of the island. It is an exceptional source of extra income. The shell, the husk and almost all the parts of the coconut tree makes you money, providing you with an excellent extra source of income. It will also help to nourish the economy of the country. You will be guided with all necessary informations regarding the coconut cultivation, with the novel cultivation techniques and all other related and upgraded informations by the Coconut Research Institute, Lunavilla. Call our hotline 1928. WhatsApp 070 400 1928. Sports News is brought to you by
Sampath Bank. We present your future.
Moving on to sports, it's cricket. Sri Lanka have been fined 20% of their match fee for maintaining a slow over rate against Australia in the second T20 International held in Sydney. David Boone of the Emirates ICC elite panel of match referees imposed the sanction after Sri Lanka were found to be 1 over short of the target after time allowances were taken into consideration. In addition, batter Pathum Nissanka of Sri Lanka was also given a warning after being found to have breached an ICC code which relates to the use of an audible obscenity during an international match. Meanwhile, Kamila Valieva can compete again at the Winter Olympics after the Court of Arbitration for Sports decided that no provisional suspension should be imposed on the 15-year-old after she failed a drug test. CAS said preventing the Russian figure skater from competing would cause her irreparable harm. It said the athlete would benefit from the exceptional circumstances, which say she is under 16 and a protected person under the World Anti-Doping Agency Code. CAS, which is sport's highest court, said serious issues of untimely notification of the results of the failed test, which came during the games and nearly 6 weeks after she gave the sample, and also played a part in its decision. The ruling said such late notifications was not her fault in the middle of the Olympic Winter Games. And that was Sports News.
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Lanka Sports Horizon has just launched a fully equipped water sports centre at the iconic Colombo Port City, offering a range of exhilarating seaborne experiences. The all-new water sports centre will add a significant attraction to Sri Lanka's commercial capital. The project aims to fill an unmet need of domestic and international tourists. And that came to you in Business News.
Business News, sponsored by
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. Will you be the lucky winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee? 50 gold sovereigns for the top prize winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee. Scooters for the 10 second prize winners. iPhones for the 10 third prize winners. Mountain bikes for the 29 fourth prize winners. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Overall annual depreciation of the rupee in 2021 was limited to 7% against the US dollar, reflecting cross-currency movements. The Sri Lanka rupee depreciated against the pound sterling, the Australian dollar and the Indian rupee, while recording an appreciation against the euro and the Japanese yen during the year 2021. And that was economic news. The weather report is next. And finally, moving on to the weather report. The Met Department says showery condition is expected to be reduced in the northern, north central and eastern provinces in the next few days. Showers or thunder showers may occur at several places in the southern province and in Ratnapura district during the evening or night. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the western, Sabaragamu and central provinces and in Gaul and Mathura districts during the morning. And that was the weather report. And to end this news broadcast, a recap of the main news headlines. A transport service is to be introduced covering tourism zones. The Ministry of Environment plants thousands of trees to mark Valentine's Day. Several institutions summoned to appear before the Committee on Public Enterprises. The opposition leader Sajid Premadasa announced as the common opposition candidate for the next presidential election. Discussions related to the health strike are unsuccessful again. 5 suspects arrested with eyes valued over 20 million rupees. And in news overseas, International Atomic Energy Agency starts safety review of Fukushima Daiichi treated water release plan. And in sports, Winter Olympics, Kamila Valieva allowed to compete at Beijing after court hearing. And with that, we conclude this news broadcast from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. And back to birthday girl Mariella to continue with evening's entertainment on this special day till end of transmission.